Exactly 10 years ago, I made a truly life-changing decision. I was a third-year attorney at a prominent national law firm, and I decided that I was going to leave the firm and go out on my own, hang my own shingle, and see what I could do. And this was not a decision that I took lightly. I grew up working class, sometimes poor, and graduating from law school and getting a good job at an outstanding firm with great colleagues, work on big, interesting, complex cases, learned a lot, had wonderful mentors. But I knew that for me, that was not the path I wanted to go on. I knew that I wanted to start my own firm. I wanted to have my own cases, my own clients, call my own shots. At the end of the day, do whatever I wanted. And you can't do whatever you want in a big law firm. And you also can't get your own cases, your own clients, not for many years at a firm of that size and that caliber that has that sort of client base and client selectivity. So I gave my notice. I gave extensive notice. I wrapped up everything I was working on. Even after the firm, I continued to work on some things to, tie off some bows and some loose ends to make sure my former colleagues who I'd worked with could pick things up and run with them. Then I got my own office, and I would get up, put on my suit and tie, and I would go sit in my office, maybe work 2 hours on the one case that I had. And then the rest of the time I would just kind of sit there and hope that the phone would ring and write some blog posts and do some research, read some case law, and study as best I could to try and become an expert in the particular areas of law that I chose to practice. Now, the reason why I'm talking about this and why I've talked about this so many times over the past few years is because I think it's very important for folks to hear a realistic and still hopeful perspective on careers outside of large companies, large law firms, larger organizations, right? I know that a lot of people shoot for big firms, big companies, prominent organizations, and they consider that a badge of success and prestige and accomplishment. I get that, I understand that, and I did too at an earlier stage in my career. But what I came to realize was all of that, all the prominence, the prestige, the massive company, the big firm, all of that comes with certain strictures and can, in many instances, be limiting with respect toward your creativity, your growth, your self-development, your self-knowledge, like your journey, not just through career, but also your journey as a human being and through life. And I was never one of those people who was capable of viewing work as just, hey, this is just my work. This is just something I do to make money, especially because, we're not talking about just an honest day's work. I used to be a day laborer when I was younger. And I get it, right? Honest day's work. That's not how law is, right? When you're a lawyer, you represent people, you represent clients, you represent individuals, you represent companies, and you have a lot of power to influence and impact people's lives. And I know there's a lot of people who work in law who are very unhappy with what they do. They're unhappy with the cases they are involved in, the clients they represent, and they just try and compartmentalize that and say, well, it's just my job. It's just what I do for money. It's just what I do for work. I can't get down with that, because in law, you have the power to ultimately influence and impact people's lives in either a profoundly positive or profoundly negative way. And at the end of the day, it's more than just a job for people who take it personally and take it to heart and do it, this way, the way that I wanted to do it. But beyond that, I just wanted to chart my own course. I wanted to be my own man. I wanted to have my own firm, and I wanted to kind of have my own, exploration of, career and business and marketing and everything else. And so when I left BIGLAW, and, this is by no means unique to law as an industry. This happens all the time in many different professions, fields, vocations, companies. When I left BIGLAW, the vast majority of people who I knew and who I had worked with told me that I was making a terrible decision. At least two people who I had worked with, who were very prominent attorneys, told me that I was throwing my career away and committing career suicide. Now, there were other people who came down on the opposite side of the coin, who basically said, yeah, Pollard, it's probably going to be tough out there for a while, but I think you'll make it, and at the end of the day, this is probably the best decision you could make. So I left BIGLAW, and whenever you leave a big company or a big organization, number one, the first thing you have to deal with is you have to deal with a lot of folks who will look at you and think, well, that person washed out because they couldn't make the cut. Son, please, son. I was an A player the whole time. You can ask anybody who worked with me. And it took me a while to get to the point where I was like, who cares what these people think? Who cares if people are under the, false impression that I left BIGLAW because I couldn't hack it? Like, no, at the end of the day, I left BIGLAW because I was like, I don't need this, right? I learned some stuff already. I had some really good, mentors who I worked with and for. I had a little bit of money in the bank. I had just enough knowledge to go out there and enough money to go out there and make it happen. Because you need a long runway whenever you're starting a business, and a law firm is, at the end of the day, a business. So many people just get it twisted and don't understand law. Yeah, like law, there's a lot more there in terms of social impact and, changing people's lives and, helping people and fighting for causes. But at the end of the day, a law firm is a business. When you run a law firm, you run a business, you own a business. And you have to think that way and be strategic about it from a business standpoint. But many times, whenever somebody leaves a larger entity, they are looked at as if they washed out, couldn't hack it, couldn't make the cut. So the first thing you have to do is, you have to get over that. And kind of 1A, the corollary to that is you'll have a lot of folks who at first won't take you seriously. And, I kind of analogize this to childhood and youth, and I've done a lot of work with children, with adolescents, with young people, whether it's as a high school teacher in Baltimore City, or a high school debate coach, or any number of mentoring programs that I've been involved with or even started and run myself. And so, when you come across a kid, when you come across like a 10 or 11 or 12-year-old kid who is really serious about pursuing something, whether it's gymnastics, or whether it's debate, or whether it's piano, or whether it's writing, or whether it's science, so often adults who are, these kind of tepid, middling, in my view, just failures at life, they are so bitter and so jaded and such shook betas that they treat young people, 10, 11, 12, 13, 15, they treat young people who are serious about pursuit of something with a certain amount of disdain and a certain amount of dismissiveness. And I never bought into that. I never got down with that. I always thought that was absolute trash, because just because somebody is young or relatively young or early on in their career or trajectory or involvement in a particular craft or discipline doesn't mean that the person is not, very gifted or does not have tremendous promise or is not capable of approaching something seriously. Anybody who's got, kids who are like that, or worked with children or young people who are like that, anybody who's had that experience in life can tell you, like, there are plenty of like 11 and 12-year-old kids out there who are hardcore about whatever their shit is, okay? And you take a kid who, like, gymnastics is her thing. I mean, my God, some of these 11 and 12-year-old gymnasts, right? Or some of these, divers who are 12 years old, or a chess player who's 13. Like, there are some of these young people out there who, like, if it's their shit, okay, they are willing to put in the time. They are willing to have the discipline, the focus, the drive, the energy. And so, much of the adult world, right, from the perspective of sort of being failed human beings, living these tepid, middling lives where they're not doing what they want, they have no passion, they just kind of slog through stuff, like, probably should go get their hormones checked, okay? These types of people, they tend to kind of look down their noses as like, don't take it seriously, right? Don't take these kids seriously. Oh, you have so much to learn, right? And so when I hit the street, okay, and started my own law firm as a, third-year attorney, just out of BIGLAW, there were a lot of people who did not take me seriously. And law is perhaps one of the worst iterations of this problem, because unlike in something, like sports or chess, or science, right? Law is so heavily dominated by men in their 60s and even 70s. And so in all other sort of facets of the world, right? If you look back at, like, military history, and so whether you're dealing with like the Revolutionary War, you're dealing with the Civil War, right? Like, you see all these instances of, like, men who are in their 30s, who are prominent, generals and sergeants. And this idea in law of, hey, if you're not 45 or 50 years old, you're not to be taken seriously. Well, it's unmitigated trash. And so you have to battle that as well. And it's not, unique to law, but it's particularly egregious in law, in that you're not taken seriously unless you're 45, 50, 60 years old, It's one of the only arenas, in society and business and entertainment and sports and everything else where, you're 33 or 35 and people are like, hey, slow down there, young gun. You're just getting your feet wet. Nonsense. But you have to deal with that. And you have to deal with that in certain other industries where, especially when you leave a big entity, a big enterprise early on in your career, you break away, you start your own thing, most people are not going to take you seriously. Now, some people will take you seriously, and from what I have found, the people who take you seriously tend to be people who are themselves true hitters, because the tepid, middling, miserable majority of society, they're losers. And they're not losers in like a sort of conventional sense. They're losers at life, because their whole paradigm is just slog through it, go along with the bullshit. Like, I'm gonna be miserable, and so I might as well just accept it and just, do whatever. And oh, this person out here who's like leaving a big enterprise and sort of trying to go for it and start their own thing, they don't want you to be successful at that, because if you succeed at that, it's gonna make them feel even more self-conscious and insufficient and inadequate within their own life because they know that they don't have the guts to go and make the same attempt. We get back in the man in the arena and sort of everything else in that direction. But so that's too, people are gonna look at you and just kind of laugh and not take you seriously. And so, is it easy, right? Was it easy? Will it be easy? Absolutely not. And you just have to gear yourself up for that. You just have to understand that, especially if you went on a certain trajectory where it's like this, right? Boom, boom, boom. So you get up, early career, you're at a prominent company, you're at a big law firm, dealing with big cases, big clients, prominent matters, very prestigious, as they call it. And then you leave and you start your own thing. Well, now you're back down here, right? You're back down here. And so I always thought it was interesting that a lot of people who work in law, particularly who work at big law firms, they develop this ego and this sense of self and this hubris that is tied to the law firm. And it's tied to the money that law firm makes, the cases that law firm litigates, the clients the law firm represents. And, this is not, I'm not talking about people who actually run those cases and run the firm and call the shots and, are A+ hitters and sort of like they've established, that they are the jam. Okay, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about all the other people, because in any enterprise like that, sort of even at the most elite firms, it's going to be a lot of hangers on, right? You're going to have people who are A+ hitters. You're going to have people who are solid contributors, but then you're going to have another sort of tier. You're going to have people who are, they are hangers on. And those hangers on, they develop that same mentality where they're basically like, I'm the jam. I work at this big firm and that's my reputation. It's like, son, please, it's not you. It's the firm. And you are not the firm. And you are some like little cog in the machine. But when you leave something like that, and so you go out and do your own thing, start your own shop, focusing on law, but it's, got broader applicability. You have a lot of these folks, right, who will look at you and feel as if they are somehow superior to you because their ego and their self-concept and identity is tied up with this bigger enterprise. So you have to get used to the fact that you're gonna go back down to the bottom, And especially if you grew up, like poor or grew up working class and first generation college student, you struggled through adversity or you had health issues, whatever the case may be, whatever adversity, that you encountered. If you had real adversity, you're gonna have to go back down to the bottom. And if you have dealt with real adversity, it will probably serve you in the long run because you will be better situated to gut it out, because it isn't going to be easy. Will you go broke? You might go broke. And if you were living a very nice, comfortable lifestyle, well, that's probably going to go bye-bye. And you're probably going to have to be living in a crappy little apartment, and you might have to put your truck up for sale. And if you were hanging out on the boulevard at all the nice bars and restaurants, probably gonna have to stop doing that for a while because you just won't be able to afford it, And I speak to that from experience. And if you can hang on, if you can gut it out, if you can be resourceful, if you can find some ways to develop expertise first, right? Expertise. That's the first thing. Like, so many people look at business and they think, I just got to go get some clients. Okay? Maybe. But in the long run, just hustling up some clients, but doing, crap quality work, like, where's that get you? One, it's unethical, but two, that kind of predatory strategy is going to backfire in the long run. The biggest thing to focus on is you need to focus on expertise, right? If I had one piece of business advice to give, people ask me, what's the best business advice you can give? Be an expert. Be an outright stone cold hardcore expert on a small slice of something. Whatever your industry is, whatever your niche is, whatever your focus is, become an expert. Why do I say that, right? Is there value in generalists? Absolutely, there's value in generalists, properly deployed. But being an expert is a brilliant business strategy, because if you really study, if you really learn, if you really master your craft, and you become good at doing X, where it's like, I do X, Y, Z, and here's how I solve these problems, and here's my results, and sort of this is my focus right here. This is what I dominate the space. That's why I always say dominate the space. If you do that, it allows you to more quickly develop brand and reputational authority, because rather than doing 26 different things, trying to be everything to all people, you're simply going out and saying, I do X, and I strive to be the best at X, and I'm going to dominate this space. And it's far more viable of a plan to dominate a smaller space with respect to the substance of what you do. So you pick a space and you dominate the space, you become an expert. And then once you become an expert in X, you become an expert in Y, something that's related, something that often comes up in the course of dealing with X, and you become an expert in Z. And so you have this nice little bucket of expertise that's interrelated, where these problems come up, often in the same arena. And that allows you to provide, one, tremendous value, because you're so specialized, you have such expertise, you've seen problems hundreds of times, you have solutions that are on the front of your mind, something that would take other people hundreds of hours to figure out. Well, you've already done it for 10,000 or 20,000 or 30,000 hours. And so it's like, yeah, that project takes me 3 hours to work on. I don't care what other people would charge you for it. I don't care what people's hourly rates are. I'm charging $20,000 for that project. Why? Because it's worth it, right? You're not just paying for 3 hours of me sitting down and like grinding through it and doing the hard work, right? You're paying for the 20,000 hours that I spent getting to this point, okay? And that's what you get through expertise. So it allows you to, one, command a premium for your time, right? You're not commanding a premium for the actual product, the actual work. The actual work is not being priced at a premium because they're getting fair value. It's an absolutely a fair value, but your hours are priced at a premium because you have expertise. And in fact, in my view, you can deliver higher value by doing things that way. So you're gonna have to gut it out, and you're gonna have to develop expertise, and you're gonna have to recognize sort of along this timeline that it always takes longer than you think to get to a point where you start making money. It always takes more money than you think to get to a point where you start making money. So if you're looking at things and you're saying, I can probably go, X months, right? Where I can pay for everything and I'm gonna be good, I got enough money in the bank, or I've got this, part-time job or whatever it is. I'm just talking, this is just entrepreneurship right here. It will cost you more money, and it will take you more time to get ramped up to where you need to be than you're planning for. So if you crunch into it and your actual projection based on your metrics is, okay, in 9 months, we're gonna start making money. Nope, you gotta factor more time in than that. If you say 9 months based on your metrics, you probably wanna say 12, right? Because you gotta build a cushion in, because the last thing that you wanna have happen is you're right here and you have the chance to get to that next rung and really sustain something, but you run out of money and you have to call it in because you can't dedicate your time and focus to it. You have to go back to work for the man or whoever or whatever else. At the end of the day, there is life outside of big firms. There's life outside of big companies, big organizations, big enterprises, but it is not for the faint of heart. It's not for people with fragile, fake egos that need the affirmation and the confidence boost that comes with being attached to a big prominent entity, firm, enterprise, etc. And it's not for people who can't gut it out, do the hard work, deal with some ugly situations, be resourceful, and adopt a mentality of, I'm going to give this a fair shot, and within the confines of giving it a fair and reasonable opportunity to succeed, I'm going to do whatever is necessary to make this work and make this viable. Because you'll probably get, a couple months out or however long out, and stuff will get tight and stuff will start to get ugly, and you'll be uncomfortable, and your first instinct for most people will be, what am I doing? I made a huge mistake. I have to just stop doing this now and go back and try to get my old job back, or get another job in corporate America. But this was so stupid of me. What was I thinking? Oh my God, I'm an idiot. I threw my life away. I threw my career away. I'm so humiliated. I'm embarrassed, whatever. You're gonna have that. You're gonna have that reaction. It's very common, it's very normal, it's very human, right? I had that reaction probably 6 months out into starting my own firm. But I just hung on. And you have to have a reasonable, limit to how long you go, how far you go, right? And that needs to be based on your life, your circumstances, your family, your responsibilities, your needs, etc. But you have to put a reasonable sort of limitation on it, where you say, okay, I'm going to give this a fair opportunity to succeed. And if I get to X point and it hasn't worked out, then maybe I do one final reevaluation and give it this, extra additional X time frame. And if it hasn't gotten traction by that point, then you call it in and you do something else. Because the reality is, sometimes you fail, right? Like, this is not a Hallmark movie. It's life. Sometimes you fail, and failing at something is not the worst thing in the world, right? Because it will teach you a bunch of lessons, and, among those lessons, maybe the lesson of what you really do or don't want to do, okay? Now, for some people, hang your own shingle, start your own business, be an entrepreneur, have your own company, etc. For some people, that's, what they want, and that's, what works for them. But for other people, they quickly realize it is too ugly out there, and there's not enough structure, there's not enough support, there's not enough of a fallback. So yeah, it's wild out here. It's ugly sometimes, but at the end of the day, I would never trade it for anything. I'm unemployable. So that's my 10-year anniversary. God bless. Have a good one.